Well, hello everyone, and welcome to week 2 of Unstoppable Good. I remember when I was younger than you all, just to sound like an old person, I memorized a couple of verses in the Bible that have always stuck with me. You might even know them. They're not like John 3:16 level popular, but they're pretty memorable. I'm talking about Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, which go like this. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make your paths straight. I remember getting like a patch to iron on my vest or something for learning those verses. That's what we were doing in my church in the 1980s. I'm sure you wish we were doing that. You ask your students, Pastor. What is the key word at the beginning of that saying? Trust. And what would you say about trust, just generally? Well, it's important, right? Coaches say you gotta trust your teammates, trust that they'll do their job, and then be someone who that they can trust that you'll do your job. Parents say, I gotta be able to trust you if I'm gonna give you more freedom. You gotta trust your teachers if you're really gonna learn anything. Trust that they'll point you in the right direction. So trust is important. And also, I think that we can say generally, trust is becoming more difficult for more and more of us. A lot of us have some trust issues, I think you could say. Maybe you've had bad luck with some friends who betrayed your trust. Maybe the adults in your life haven't been people that you can count on. Maybe you've just known too many people who appeared to be honest and good and genuine, but turns out, I'm not really sure if I can trust them. A lot of people can relate to that. More people have less trust in institutions like government, media, business, even church. Those things are not viewed as reliable, helpful things that contribute something good to life. And people don't trust the leaders of those institutions like they once did. Well, at least if you Google that and you find that, you decide if you can trust what that's telling you. So here's the deal. Trust is hard, and it's becoming increasingly difficult in our world. And it might be really challenging for you personally. A lot of us might have trust issues. And yet, trust is fundamental to following Jesus. If you're gonna say, I'm in it for good, that's a statement of trust. Are we ready for that? More than memorizing a verse or reciting some lines, could we be ready to come to Jesus with our trust issues and learn from Him? Allow Him to change us and to go in the direction that He's leading. Well, follow me and let's find out. Proverbs 3 has a lot more to say to us, actually. Open a Bible if you have one. We know verses 5 and 6, but if you go back to the beginning of chapter 3, it begins like this. My child, do not forget my teaching, but keep my commands in your heart, for they will prolong your life many years and bring you peace and prosperity. So this is coming to us in the form of wisdom being passed along from a parent to a child. And right there we might say, well, hold up, because so many of us have been trained to distrust our parents' generation. Those traditions and beliefs that get inherited by one generation from the previous, like we're not so sure about all that. Sounds too authoritative. And we're looking for something more authentic, like true to us, thinking that is more in line with how we feel about things. That seems easier to trust. But is it wise for the young to shut out the perspective of the old? Trust me and listen to my teaching, this old voice says. But it's not just saying to trust human authority. No, that's why we memorize verse 5, right? Trust in the Lord with all of your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight. It goes on, verse 7, do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and shun evil. This will bring health to your body and nourishment to your bone. So this old person doesn't look to themselves as the ultimate authority. Rather, they have placed their trust in God, and they're urging anyone who would listen to them to do the same. And notice that trust in the Lord is contrasted with what? Yes, trust in yourself, in your own understanding. And the Bible is really grinding against so much of the advice that is shoved at us. Like, listen to your inner voice. You do you. Believe in yourself. When you really think about it, we are constantly prompted and tempted to be wise in our own eyes. You want a romantic relationship with someone. What are we told? Just follow your heart. Do whatever feels right to you. No other perspective on what makes for healthy relationships seems to matter. Just your understanding. Or when it comes to what you put in your body, whether you're talking about food or drink or substances, what are we so often told? Obey your thirst. Trust your desires, in other words. Trust that always satisfying your appetites will lead you in a good direction and result in a good life. Or think about if you get mad at someone and it's like, well, what's the best way to handle that? And other people might have their way, but you say, no, for me, I'll trust my impulses to attack that person on social media and put them in their place. We all choose how to spend our money and how to spend our time. And when doing so, it's a pretty common tendency to look out for ourselves first and believe that that's what's going to lead to the best life. Or when making big decisions. Yes, you got that inner voice, right? But there's a choice about whether you're going to lean entirely on that inner voice. You can just listen to that and shut your ears to other voices and other perspectives, and that avoids you having to listen to something that you don't want to hear. But of course, the real question with all of these things is it truly wise to lean on and live by and trust your own understanding? I think I hear the writer of Proverbs 3 kind of clearing his throat at this point. It's like, excuse me, careful now, because even if you got to hear some things that maybe you don't want to hear, I would be cautious about assuming that the good life comes by trusting your own understanding only. And he's really going to press in on it. Right next he goes at something that is one of the most intimate things to us, money. The money that some of us work hard for in our jobs and others of us wish our parents would give us more of. All right, go to verse 9. He says, honor the Lord with your wealth, with the first fruits of all your crops. Then your barns will be filled to overflowing, and your vats will brim over with new wine. Okay, so just a few things here that might be a little foreign, but a couple things. Some people would take that and run with it to a prosperity gospel belief like, hey, give to God and you'll get rich. But the wisdom here is much deeper. When you take into account all of the Bible, and you consider that the situation for Jesus followers everywhere is not always that of having big barns and wine overflowing. Many live in material poverty or close to it. Some even do that by choice because they see that as a hallmark of their commitment to Jesus. But even so, what you find with so many of those people is that they are still leaning on and trusting this principle of honoring God with whatever wealth they have, whatever money they have. They're giving to the Lord first. And in that commitment, they find utter contentment and peace and joy. It's overflowing and enriching their lives, and their vats are as full as they need. Now, this particular proverb, clearly it's imagining someone whose life is tied to the land. That's a noble vocation. You work the ground, gardens and vineyards and cornfields, till them, cultivate them so that they make fruit. Now, that may not be our world. We're all students right now, and then we might go on to have a variety of vocations that produce fruit of a different kind. Some on really big scales, and some smaller. And those are noble things too. But to all of us, the city folk, country folk, rich folk, poor folk, doesn't matter. This word still speaks. Honor the Lord with your wealth, however much or however little it is. Trust God with the first of whatever money is put into your hands. It's the wisest thing you could do. This thing that we're doing, Unstoppable Good, it's calling us to do exactly that. In fact, if you haven't already gotten a commitment card, you'll have one soon. And it's going to lead you to think about, what has God put into your hands? What do you have that you'd be willing to share so that it could do unstoppable good? It could be money, or we could say our treasure. Maybe you got a job, maybe you don't. You get birthday money, or you find money on the sidewalk, right? Whatever you have, how could you show that you trust God with it? Giving God the first portion. Or think about your time and talent. You're probably not farming land, but you can use your hands to serve in other ways and bless people. There's some ideas on the card that you have. How would you spend your time and your money to honor God in all your ways? As you think about that, let's follow Proverbs 3 for 2 more moves. Back to Proverbs 3 and verse 11. My child, do not despise the Lord's discipline, and don't resent his rebuke, because the Lord disciplines those he loves. As a father, the son he delights in. So thinking about God's discipline is probably not a fun thing, but see the wisdom here, okay? Here's the deal. It is a reality when you follow Jesus that the more you pay attention to Jesus's ways, the more you discover that they're at odds with your ways. You might not line up with Jesus in all your ways, especially at first. Whether it's, the way you treat people or how you talk or how you manage your emotions or manage your time and your money. What's true for all of us is that if we hang close enough to Jesus long enough, we start to discover that, me and Jesus, we don't always jive. So what do we do about that? Well, if we see Jesus for who he is, then we see his ways as good and right and beautiful and true. And as a result, our ways fall short of that standard. The light of Christ exposes we need to be disciplined. Not like punished, okay? Not go sit in the corner for being bad, but disciplined as in retrained, redirected, brought under the instruction of good, loving Jesus. Not just trusting our own whims and desires. This proverb is saying to us, don't resist that training and discipline. It comes from love. Trust that process, even when it's painful. And it will be painful sometimes. Like with money, for example, we've already gone there. If you've always been used to spending your money on yourself, and then Jesus is inviting you to give money to others for their good, that could be difficult and even painful to let Jesus start to discipline and redirect your money decisions. But could it be that as good as we think it might be going to just do it our own way, could it be possible that there's even something better available by replacing our trust? And that's exactly what this proverb is saying. And we'll come to a close right here. After a set of teachings that might be challenging, this old teacher says in verse 13, "Blessed are those who find wisdom, those who gain understanding. For she, wisdom, is more profitable than silver and yields a better return than gold. She is more precious than rubies. Nothing you desire can compare with her. She is a tree of life to those who take hold of her. Those who hold her fast will be blessed." The tree of life. That's at the beginning of the story. Adam and Eve leaned on their own understanding of what was good, and they lost their access to the tree of life. This old teacher says that taking hold of God's wisdom is a way back. Trust God's wisdom and you will find the life that is truly life, the kind of life that you and I were made for. It's the most valuable thing that you can get your hands on, and it starts with trust. And then look how this comes full circle. We've already been talking about money and wealth, and we know that if we're gonna trust the advice of this teacher, more than that, if we're gonna trust the Lord, it will lead us to give away more money, to devote more money to God for his unstoppable good work. But that act of trusting God is the path to gaining more wisdom, which is of greater value than silver and gold and rubies, any money you've ever seen. So somehow, in God's way of organizing things, you will increase what you're giving away and increase your wealth at the same time. If, of course, you're ready to trust. To trust the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding, and acknowledge God in all your ways, that he might make your paths straight.